Good day everybody! Today I want to show you what it actually takes to run a proper 7-figure brand, what my daily responsibilities are, how I'm managing my team, and so on. I hope you like this video, so let's get it started. So if you guys don't know me already, I'm Blago and I've made more than 7.5 million in sales with one dropshipping product. And to prove to you that I'm not some bullshit guru, let's check the numbers for the last 3 months. Q4 was pretty decent, I would say, and we were able to hit more than 50k in monthly profit for the past 3 months. You can see October was around 76k, November over 50k, and around 70k in December. Let me refresh that for you. And of course, you can check the Shopify numbers. So just a disclaimer, this is not a beginner's video. I already have a team and systems in place, and the goal with this video is to show you how to actually execute as an e-commerce CEO and really take the most from your time as an entrepreneur. So let's check the 3 main fields of activities that you should have as an e-commerce entrepreneur. So first of all, of course, as a brand owner, properly running your advertising. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you probably run ads on Facebook or TikTok as main traffic channels. So that's pretty much the oxygen for your brand, and of course that should still be your main focus, even on higher levels. When it comes to advertising, there's pretty much 2 types of activities. Activities that require consistency and activities that require creativity. When it comes to consistency, especially on TikTok and also on Facebook, you need to be putting out at least 10 new creative pieces per week so that you don't have creative fatigue and you're pretty much backed up that if your ads get exhausted, you have fresh new ones that you can launch. And you need to pretty much test new creatives every single week or plan new creatives ahead. So for example, when we were right about to get into Q4, we were already planning the Black Friday and even holiday creatives in advance, because even though we didn't need them at that particular point, we knew that pretty much the creative load that we need to have during those holiday periods is very high and we wouldn't be able to pretty much keep up with the creative demand. So even though you might not need creatives at that particular moment and everything is running perfectly, you still need to plan in advance, and you can kind of average it out and make sure that you get new creatives every single week, because the more you have, the better and more stable your performance will be, even if you have strong winners running already. And the second part is creativity. What I mean by that is coming up with new scripts, coming up with new angles, pretty much getting those new ideas on how to level up your marketing with new approaches, aside from just repeating what's already been working. And for me specifically, that's not a predictable process, right? I cannot just, decide one day I'm gonna make, 10 different video scripts. Every time that I try to do that and to deliberately and, inspire creativity in myself, I always failed and I'm always feeling like a bum and I can't come up with anything creative. So what I like to do instead is not stress too much about it, and on particular days when I have a lot of creative juice, I'll just script out as much as possible, like script out a lot of ideas on a Google Doc. Then I'll share it with my team, we're gonna discuss it, and then we're gonna prepare a lot of new creatives in advance. So I would say creativity is about momentum and about, being in the particular state and energy to be very creative and come up with a lot of, ad scripts. However, you need to consistently pump out new creatives no matter what your current situation is, because chances are your ads are gonna get exhausted and you're gonna be left with crumbles and you're gonna be running on very low margins. So to recap, the creative sourcing process itself should be very consistent. However, coming up with those new ideas doesn't need to be. And that's better because you cannot just force this thing, or at least it's never worked for me. Moving on with my media buying activities, I don't really look much at the isolated metrics of my ad accounts. For example, I'm not looking at the isolated metrics on Google, not on the ROAS of Facebook, and I pretty much take a very holistic look of how the store performed in that particular day. Then what I like to do is take a look at whatever tracking platform I use. I highly recommend using an ad tracking platform like WeTracked or Triple Whale, or if you're using Norbeam, that's completely fine. But you need to have that in order to have clarity on what actually brought very good performance, because otherwise there's huge overlap between the ad platforms, and you won't be completely sure whether that good performance actually came from Facebook or Google. It might have come up from email and Facebook's just attributing the purchases. So just look very holistically and don't take the Facebook ROAS or the TikTok ROAS way too literally, especially if you're doing omnichannel advertising. So what I like to do instead is look for unique scaling opportunities. What that means is you have particular days with very good performance where ads are just clicking, Facebook is giving you very good quality traffic, the conversion rate is very high. So the reasons for that might be, just pretty much Zuckerberg is giving you a gift and, ads are running well because of the platform, or there's like a macro trend within your niche and people are buying more and more. We've seen that during, the pandemic. Whatever the reason is, you need to capitalize on that and you need to be very observative, if that's an English word, about what your performance was in the past 24 hours. Analyze deeply the conversion rate and the whole funnel, and if it's converting like crazy, just ramp up the budgets. And that's how I was able to scale from 8K a day to 20K a day within 2 days. You can check the video that I made on my channel. It's the first video that I have. But anyways, in my opinion, observing your market and like the whole trend within your niche is much more important than actually spending tons of hours, trying to optimize different small little campaigns, test a lot with different media buying strategies, because you pretty much lose out on the whole picture, right? The only instance when I'm actually very deep into the ad account and analyzing little nitty-gritty details is when Facebook is spending like more than 90% of the budget towards one specific creative. And for example, you can have 5-6 creative in one ad set. Facebook is gonna spend all of the budget towards one creative. In those situations, you need to analyze whether that creative is actually performing well, and if needed, isolate it in a specific ad set. I made a whole video on that as well, so you might want to check out my Facebook ad strategy as well. So the last piece I want to share with you about advertising is not that much about, how to exactly run ads, but rather how to gain inspiration. And what I usually like to do is check competitors every week, go to Foreplay. That's a very cool platform to pretty much get inspiration from different brands. I go on Foreplay, I look for brands that are in a similar niche or selling the exact same product, get some inspiration from them, and look overall how big direct response brands are actually advertising, because you don't need to have a direct competitor to get some inspiration, right? For example, you can see that a brand is crushing it with VSLs. However, none of your competitors are using this type of creative. So you might be the first one to use a VSL, and it can unlock a whole new market for you and your product. So next up, the next most important thing that you want to absolutely do as an e-commerce CEO is check how your store is performing. The way I like to look at this thing is pretty much troubleshooting. Whenever you're running a lot of traffic, a lot of random things can happen to your store and they can hurt your conversion rate. Your whole funnel can have a leak somewhere and you might not even know where it's coming from. So what I like to do on a weekly basis is a funnel check. So pretty much I go through my ads, I click on my links, I go through the copies, I go through the product page, I read the whole product page, I check whether all the buttons are working, especially if you're running, advertorials. It's even more complex. You need to pretty much make sure that there's no leak of traffic, because you're pretty much spending all this money on traffic and it's going somewhere else instead of buying, right? I like to do a full funnel check, including the checkout page. There might be a chance that you left a discount code somewhere and people are using it and you get like lower AOV and of course lower gross margins and lower overall profit. So you might want to avoid that thing as much as possible. And you do that by just setting up a weekly reminder to check your whole funnel. But on the day-to-day basis, you need to do conversion rate checks. What I mean by that is pretty much checking how your store performed in the past 24 hours, how it performed in the past 3 days, the past week, and see if there's a trend in your conversion rate. So if you see that if your conversion rate is dropping, that might mean that either your creatives are getting exhausted, Facebook is performing worse and worse, or there's just overall lower demand in your niche. However, you can only be sure about that after doing the full funnel check. If you checked your funnel already and you don't see a problem in something creating pretty much conversion friction, you can be pretty sure that the problem that you have with your lower conversion rate is not actually the store. It's something else, and you need to go back to advertising, analyze your finances and stuff like that, but I'll get to that point in a second. But my point with this is that the conversion rate is actually one of the most reliable metrics to evaluate your whole store's performance. Because if everything else is set up correctly, you know that you're not pretty much relying on one single creative, it's not exhausted, you've been testing a lot of things on the advertising side, your funnel is properly set up, but your conversion rate is low, then that means that either your marketing angle is kind of getting exhausted as a whole and you need to test more angles, or there's overall lower demand for your product currently and you need to pretty much scale down and optimize for profitability. And usually what I'm noticing is that when I scale way too hard, my conversion rate drops. So I like to combat this by just dropping the budgets a little bit, and then the conversion rate automatically increases. So I hope this makes sense. And the last thing that I like to do when it comes to store management is doing A/B split testing on a post-purchase side. So pretty much post-purchase upsells are the easiest way to increase your AOV. I've already talked a lot about this and I don't need to mention this, but pretty much I like to schedule new tests for the OCU, and I like to use Zipify one-click upsell or after sell for my post-purchase funnel. And the reason why this is so important is because every additional dollar that you add to your AOV with the same ad spend goes straight into profit. You don't need to be selling any more products if you just make a few more split tests, determine a higher price that you can, sell your upsell for, and you raise your AOV by, let's say, $3. That means that you'll be making those $3 until the end of your store every single day in profit. So that's very powerful, and it's pretty much like compounding interest, right? You won't have a perfect post-purchase funnel right off the bat, and that's a mistake that I see a lot of people do. They just set up the most logical post-purchase funnel, they add some complementary products, they add the same product or some services, and of course that works. Like, that will for sure give you a higher AOV. However, it shouldn't stop there. It's a continuous process, and let's say the first setup gives you, additional 15% in AOV, you can get it up to 25%, even 30% in additional AOV if you continue split testing it. And that's traffic that you already acquired. These are customers that already bought from your store. So it's a no-brainer to not test it further and optimize it properly. And the last part I want to share with you today is how to properly manage your finances. And that goes way beyond just checking your profit, checking your net profit margin, and make sure that you're making bank. You need to actually check a lot more metrics than you thought, and I'm gonna briefly explain that in a second. So first of all, you need to look at blended metrics and new customer metrics. So if we look at our P&L here, so I'm analyzing the whole period of Q4, but especially if you're running email marketing already, there you can find very big differences on particular days. So the blended ROAS is pretty much the ROAS of your whole store, including all sorts of marketing. A new customer ROAS is pretty much the ROAS we have on, brand new people that, purchase from your store. So the problem is when you have an email campaign, your blended ROAS will be very high. However, your new customer ROAS might be much, much lower than what you thought. The reason for that is because email campaigns convert very well. The conversion rate on your store will be also very high. So if you don't check all those things and see, okay, those orders actually came from email, not from Facebook, you will scale your campaigns. It might even be a shitty day for Facebook and you can lose a whole bunch of money. So before scaling hard and before getting greedy, if you have very good performance on a particular day, check the discrepancy between blended ROAS and new customer ROAS. If the discrepancy is big, don't scale. If the discrepancy is small, however, you are pretty confident that your cold targeting campaigns are running well, so you can ramp up the budgets like crazy. The other metric that I like to analyze on a daily basis is the gross margin. Actually, our gross margin is roughly around 60%, so we've set the numbers a little bit conservatively, and that's a great tip that I have for you guys. Like whenever you're setting up your P&L, set up slightly higher numbers for the costs, because you want to always be protected and make sure that you're actually making more money than what your P&L is saying. So our actual net profit margin is around 20%, but since we've set the product cost a little bit higher, we have lower gross margin. But to get back to my point, you need to analyze this every single day, because on some days it will be a few percent lower, and you need to check your whole funnel to see whether you're sending people to the proper product page with a proper price. Check the prices, of course, on all of your products. Check if you haven't left a discount code somewhere else in the store. And that can get extremely messy once you start split testing a lot of things and have a whole bunch of campaigns sending traffic to different landing pages. So pretty much the easiest way to see whether there's a sign to worry about it, you can just check your gross margin. If there's a very big discrepancy between your usual gross margin and your actual gross margin on that particular period, you actually have a problem. Of course, it might be just Facebook or whatever platform you use is sending you lower quality traffic. Those people are not actually buying the upsells, which naturally brings your gross margin down. However, that shouldn't excuse you from not analyzing your whole store. And last but not least, you need to properly manage your cash flow. The way we do it is pretty simple. We just check the payouts on our bank account, see whether the timing is correct, if there are delays, or sometimes banks need additional information, the transfers are delayed and so on. And you need to be very careful with that, especially if you're doing like very big payouts, because if you stop your cash flow for 2 weeks and you still pay your supplier, you can drain your bank account like very fast. So in order to prevent that, just check your bank account every 2 days, see if the payouts are coming in, no matter what platform you're using, either Stripe or you need to manually do this on PayPal. However, this will make sure that you're actually staying liquid, even if you have a lot of money saved up. Because I know how easy it is to get comfortable and see all the money that you have in a bank account and be like, you know what, like I don't need to check all this, we've got money to cover all the costs. But once you start scaling hard, your weekly expenses can double, triple, even quadruple. So even though you might have money saved up in your account, when you start scaling like crazy, cash flow management is key. So pretty much my rule of thumb is calculating how much I am planning to spend in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and make sure that I have all this money in my bank account so that whatever stuff happens, I can cover my expenses for the next 2 weeks, even when I'm scaling, and I won't have to pretty much lower my budget on campaigns overnight or make like radical changes to my ad account that might hurt my performance in the long run. I would rather scale more slowly than risk my cash flow and have to pretty much stop campaigns potentially just because I cannot cover my expenses. And of course, if you're based in the US, you should use a proper credit card like Amex Gold. However, since I'm based in Europe, I don't have access to this. So to recap, you have to pretty much calculate how much you're going to spend in the next 2 weeks. If it's, let's say you plan to scale up to 100K per week, so you're gonna do around 200K in the next 2 weeks on average. So you're probably gonna net around 20-25% from that. That means that another 75% you need to have as liquid cash to cover all of the expenses. So in this particular situation, you need to have around 150K in your bank account in order to scale to those numbers pretty confidently. I'm not using any formulas or any fancy stuff. I just make sure that there's enough money in the bank account, and no matter what happens, I'll be okay. So you might have already noticed that some of those things actually overlap between the different categories, right? For example, your conversion rate is a part of your store, but it affects your advertising performance as well as your financial performance, and it pretty much affects all of the other metrics, right? So it's not an isolated thing that I'm looking at, and the thing that puts it all together is actually team communication. And I decided to not cover customer support at all in this video simply because I'm not even thinking about it. Like, the team communication is so well built that I just have monthly check-ins with my customer support manager. He's like, hey, this thing is doing good, we need to fix this with the supplier, we have those problems, and then I can take immediate action, fix a few things, and not care for customer support for pretty much the rest of the month. So proper team communication is what's putting the whole thing together. So for example, if I don't have a straightforward communication with my content creation team, my performance is gonna go down, my creators are gonna get exhausted, and I'll pretty much ruin the consistency part in the whole equation. Same applies for the store. If you don't communicate directly with your team, and let's say you're running a special sale campaign, but you leave the discount code on, and then the campaign is finished, but you still have the discount code on the store, it might ruin your AOV. You're gonna lose out on a lot of profit. Another example with your store is when you have an email campaign or a sale campaign and you leave the discount code on the store itself, or someone on your team was responsible for that, but they didn't remove it because they pretty much didn't know they had to. So after the sale is over, you can lose out on a lot of profit just because you left that discount code there, and it's all because it was not communicated in advance that this is just a short-term thing and it should be removed afterwards. Another problem might be broken links on email campaigns. For example, we've had this happen. We had all the flows going to our 1.0 version of the product, but then we switched to a 2.0 version. But what our mistake was, we didn't notify our email marketing team. So pretty much all of our email marketing was set up going to the previous landing page, although we were already sending the whole Facebook traffic to the new product page. So they order the product, they want a 2.0 version, but then they get emails for the 1.0 version, which kind of sucked. So communication in email marketing, like backend and front end, is extremely important. So when it comes to the financial side of things, I think the biggest place when you can fuck up things is cash flow management, especially if you're not running your e-commerce business by yourself. You have a business partner or somebody else who's responsible for the finances. So let's say you are running the ads and you want to scale like crazy. However, you have a PayPal hold or payouts are getting delayed, and the person who's responsible for cash flow management and operation doesn't know that you want to pretty much spend a lot more aggressively on ads in the following week. So until this point, you might have had a very good financial situation, but this link can easily get broken. And trust me, like, I've done this mistake so many times. We had one occasion where we were changing companies and Stripe decided to hold more than $80,000 from us, even though we notified them in advance, and it was right before Q4. So we needed this money for scaling and for inventory, and it pretty much put us in a very bad situation. Now, if we didn't communicate it properly and didn't act on it immediately, we would have probably lost out on a lot of profit because we couldn't have access to this money. But since my business partner had very good contacts in Stripe, he was able to unlock the money, we could get it back and scale with the money. So to recap this video, I want to point out that your main goal as an entrepreneur is not just to make more money, but to gain more leverage in your business. So depending on your talents and pretty much what your strengths are, you might want to focus more on advertising or on testing different landing pages. Doesn't matter. Your goal is to expand your team and build your whole business around your strengths and make sure that the weak links because those are still constraints in your business, are covered by highly responsible people in your team. So for example, I'm a relatively creative person and I also like finances, so most of my attention is actually on the advertising and finance part, and we hired a very good store manager, or what I like to call her a brand manager, Kat. She is amazing, to manage the whole store. And that way I have all of the bases covered, but I'm focusing on the things that I like to do the most. And I think that's ultimately what we want to do as business owners, right? We want to focus on the things that we actually enjoy doing and pretty much hand out the remaining responsibilities to somebody else for the things that we don't enjoy doing, because those things might be the things that this person actually enjoys doing. So it's easy to get caught up in a lot of the day-to-day stuff and like run through different tasks, different things, different aspects of your business, but it's important to keep this as the North Star of your business because it's so easy to get caught up in details. So that's everything I had for you guys. I hope you liked this video, and if you did so, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you're an e-commerce entrepreneur who's already doing at least 20K a month, and you want to scale to multiple 7 figures, you can apply to work directly with me one-on-one to scale your store. Just DM me on Instagram or check out one of the links below. Thank you so much for watching and keep crushing it.